Lucas was confused because he didn't hear any sound. Jude told him to just trust her. Actually, it wasn't just Cordelia who could hear the sound, but Jude too. Jude was confused. Was this voice something that anyone other than Cordelia should be able to hear? He tried to think of something in common between Jude and Cordelia that Lucas didn't have. Pointing ahead, Cordelia then said that the witch was sealed in the cave over there. Jude looks at Cordelia, who looks happy, because she is the main character of this episode, so he doesn't need to tell her the truth that will mess up her mood. She then told that they are getting closer to the source of the sound. Soon they see the witch sealed in ice. The witch tells them to remove the seal. Cordelia understood, then said that to remove the witch's seal, they had to weaken the sealing stone using holy water on each side, and use a magic circle to release the seal at the center of the ice. They then tried to remove the witch's seal. The witch was surprised when she saw Jude, who knew the magic circle he was drawing. She asked if Jude was a magician who was an expert in sealing. Cordelia then said that her part was done. Jude and Lucas were almost done too. The witch was confused as to why they already knew about the process of removing the seal. Cordelia then told Jude and Lucas to back off, because she was going to remove the seal. And for the final step, Cordelia then dripped her blood into the magic circle. The color of the magic circle was different from when they fought the demonkin. The light was not to suppress, but to release. They then heard a voice approaching them quickly. Jude guessed that the voice was an evil being suppressing the witch. It could be that it realized that the seal was broken. The process of removing the seal took quite a long time. Cordelia wished it could be faster. Cordelia then recalled the words of her father when she was a child. Her father said that blood is the connection to the soul, so for magician like them, the blood in the body is already something precious. Her father told her to remember this well, and told her to take proper care of her body. Jude and Lucas were ready when they saw the evil being that was getting closer. Cordelia then poured more of her blood into the seal. She hoped it would help release the seal faster. Until finally the witch was freed from the seal. She thanked them for freeing her from the nauseating seal for hundreds of years. Right after that they saw the evil being coming. Cordelia then asked the witch to help them deal with the evil being. The witch would certainly help them. She said that she would teach Cordelia how to survive this danger. While hugging her from behind, the witch then said to accept her soul into her body. The scene was then shown as Delia and the confused and screaming guards searched for the three of them. Back to the three of them. Jude saw the same scene as in the game. After the witch was released from the seal, the witch, whose body no longer existed, bonded with Cordelia for a while to deal with the evil being, after which their connection would be severed, and the witch's soul would begin to disappear as it was freed from its shackles. By accepting her soul temporarily, Cordelia learned the witch form. This is how events progressed in Cordelia's story. After receiving the witch's power, Cordelia's hair and clothes turned jet black. If everything went normally, Cordelia should be able to defeat the monster by borrowing the witch's power, but Jude knew that it wouldn't be that easy. Cordelia now had a problem. Although she could feel the witch's power enveloping her, but she didn't know how to use it. The witch was confused to see that. Jude thought that Cordelia really sucked at participating in events. Jude then told Lucas that they had to buy time. They then moved towards the evil being, and when Jude arrived near the evil being, he was surprised to see that the evil being's attack was very fast, about to hit him. But fortunately the attack was parried by Lucas' sword throw. Jude then quickly retreated. He thanked Lucas. They have indeed leveled up after defeating the demonkin, but they currently cannot use Valentin's magic circle, because they have not prepared it. Fighting here will only harm them. They could only trust Cordelia at this time. The witch then demonstrated how to use her power. She told Cordelia to feel it, even though this was someone else's mana, but her body was the warehouse to contain it. Until a few moments later, Cordelia finally knew how to use it, and when the evil being was about to release a breath attack from its mouth, Cordelia then suddenly closed the evil being's mouth forcefully, causing the evil being to blow itself up. Cordelia then used wind magic to attack the evil being again. After releasing the attack, Cordelia immediately looked exhausted, even had a nosebleed. The witch said that it was too early for Cordelia to use her powers at will. She told Cordelia not to rely solely on her power, but to use her magic. Cordelia then asked her to tell her a spell. The witch was surprised, because Cordelia didn't even know it. Although the witch wanted to tell her, but their time was now limited, Cordelia was then surprised when the evil being's attack was about to hit her. But fortunately Jude was able to quickly save her using fairy footsteps. Jude then asked about her condition. The witch said that the reckless use of her power was exacerbating the side effects. It would get worse if it continued. Cordelia knew that, but Cordelia currently only knew that only she could hear the witch's voice. Jude then called out to her. Cordelia then understood that Jude could also hear her. She then transferred the witch's power to Jude. Cordelia is then seen unconscious, while Jude's hair now extends thanks to receiving the witch's power. The witch says that Jude is not suited to her power, and that he will receive major side effects. Jude knew that. But they couldn't just stand by. Jude then attacked the evil being using a spell. But Jude received major side effects immediately afterwards. It was because his body had not fully recovered from the 9-blocked yin pathway. Cordelia then woke up. She immediately attacked the evil being using a magic missile. Cordelia's attack managed to hit the eye area. Jude then attacked the evil being again. The combination of their attacks succeeded in turning the evil being into dust. Lucas was then surprised when he saw the two of them who were almost unconscious. He then came over to them. Before they were unconscious, they received a notification telling them that they got the title Demon Slayer, and increased their stats by 3, and the attack power against demons increased by 5%. Cordelia then left it to Lucas to take care of the rest. And when they both woke up, they saw the witch in front of them. At this time they turned out to be in the mental world, while their bodies were still asleep. It was the witch who moved their consciousness here, because there was something she had to talk to them about. But before that, she pondered whether to tell them about her past first, but Cordelia said that she already knew about it. The witch was surprised by that. Cordelia also said that she also knew why she was sealed. Jude was speechless at that. The witch asked if Cordelia also knew about what she was going to talk about, but Cordelia said that she didn't really know, and asked the witch to tell her. The witch was happy to hear that. She then told her story. A long time ago, there was a child who was sold as a sacrifice for demon summoning, for the price of 9 copper coins only. The child was then used as a toy by the devil for the rest of his life. After he died, the child was destined to suffer forever, and the person who sold him was his own parents, while the person who made him a slave was the devil. Although he never made his own decision, the child did not accept his destiny. He then used his body as a slave to kill many demons. From then on, people began to call him a witch. Over time, this witch grew stronger and stronger. She became strong enough to be noticed by the 5 lords of hell, and among them, Asmodeus tried to use the witch's soul to get rid of the other lords of hell. And unbeknownst to anyone, she sealed the witch's soul in the Trafalgar Forest, in order to make the witch's soul submit to her until the day she would carry out her plan. This is the story of the witch's life until now. The story is so long that it almost makes Jude and Cordelia fall asleep. The witch then tells Cordelia, even though it was only for a short time, she still held her soul. The witch knew Cordelia's potential from her body and soul, the potential to gain the same power as her. She had left an imprint of her soul on Cordelia's soul, and told Cordelia to remember the sensations when she used her powers. Cordelia could use that to strengthen her powers later. Although the witch wanted to give Jude something, but unfortunately he didn't match her powers. Instead, he had a different potential. Jude was surprised to hear that. The witch then left, and hoped to see them again. And after Cordelia opened her eyes, she then saw Delia in front of her. Delia then asked her how she was. Cordelia said that she was fine. Jude was also awake at this time. As for the others, fortunately everyone was safe, and no one was seriously injured. Cordelia then saw Lucas, who told the heroic story of Jude saving Cordelia, and said that it was proof of true love that did not fear death. Cordelia was very upset to hear that. After the examination, Jude and Cordelia fainted from exhaustion, while their bodies were fine. Since everyone had been walking here non-stop, they decided to spend the night here, and continue their journey tomorrow. Jude was fine with it. He also wanted to check if there were any item drops or anything like that. Lucas then said, while the two of them rested, he would tell them everything that happened here, without missing a single detail. Cordelia could only resign herself to it, and asked him not to tell it too dramatically. The next day, they then continued their journey, and as planned, they would visit the Viscount Northern Mansion, and stay there for a day or two. They would also meet one of the envoys from the Riesfelger family there. Lucas also said that he had heard that the person who was coming was someone he respected, and he was looking forward to this meeting. Cordelia then asked Jude who he thought Lucas was talking about. Jude said that he didn't know. Cordelia then asked about the object he was holding. It was the object given by Count Chase that was entrusted to Maya before she left. Cordelia was upset because again only Jude got it, but Jude then said that this time she also got it, because this was an engagement ring, so there should be 2. Cordelia looked embarrassed when she heard that. And when Jude opened it, they then heard Count Chase's voice. He used a message spell to leave the voice. Count Chase told Jude to take good care of Cordelia. Jude felt Count Chase's words were very old. He then looked at the item instructions in the box. It turned out that the engagement ring could increase the effectiveness of the wearer's magic. Not only that, Jude's ring had healing magic while Cordelia's ring had defense magic stored in it. Jude then put the ring on Cordelia's finger. He was worried that the wound would leave a mark when he put a bandage on her hand, but it seemed that Cordelia was fine after being given healing magic. Cordelia blushed at that. And when Cordelia wanted to pull her hand away, she suddenly fell into Jude's arms. A guard suddenly entered and asked about their situation, because there was a fallen tree blocking their way, so they had to stop the train suddenly, and before the guard finished his sentence, she then saw the scene when Jude and Cordelia were hugging. she apologized for disturbing them, and invited them to continue. And when they arrived at Viscount Northern's residence, they were greeted by him. Viscount Northern was the ruler of the north who took care of the territory between Langhist and Riesfelger. They were then invited to rest after a tiring journey. A maid then led them to their room. Although Viscount Northern was not mentioned very often in the game, they felt that he seemed like a good person. And while heading to the room, they then met Delia. Delia asked if they were going back to their respective rooms. Cordelia said yes and asked if the Guardian Knights also had their own rooms. Delia said yes, but somehow the Guardian Knights ended up talking about drinking together on the first floor. Cordelia then encouraged her to follow it, but Delia refused because she wanted to look after them now. Jude and Lucas then again encouraged her to follow it, because not only were they tired on this trip, but the Guardian Knights too, so they also needed time to relax. Delia then accepted. The three of them then went to their respective rooms. At midnight, when everyone was asleep, someone quietly sneaked into Jude's room, and when he was about to enter through the window, a sudden explosion occurred. The person was confused by it, then was surprised when he saw Jude, who was no longer in his bed. Jude suddenly sneaked up behind him and immediately killed him. Jude realized that the person was a member of the Demon's Hand based on his clothes. Cordelia then entered and immediately attacked the other Demon's Hand members who were about to enter through the window. Cordelia said that they had to hurry because she couldn't maintain her witch form for long. They then headed to the first floor knowing that everyone was gathered there. Before that, Cordelia asked if Jude had heard an explosion or something. Jude said that he had done it. He had set a trap that would explode when someone tried to enter through the window. Cordelia was surprised to hear that. Viscount Northern prepared their bedroom on the second floor and used drinks to make the Guardian Knights less alert. This was proof that they understood the loopholes that could be exploited in their strengths. After thinking, Jude guessed that Viscount Northern was a trap. Arriving on the first floor, they then saw Lucas, who was surrounded by Demon's Hand members. After receiving Jude and Cordelia's help, the three of them were then able to easily kill the Demon's Hand members who surrounded him. Lucas said that there was a problem. The door was immediately blocked when the Guardian Knights was exiting through the front door. Cordelia then went straight out through the back door. Jude tried to stop her, but to no avail. Cordelia felt that something was wrong here. Jude asked her to better take it slow, because they didn't know what would await them. Cordelia then saw Delia, who had been injured by a Demon's Hand member, and just as she was about to help her, Viscount Northern suddenly attacked them. He enveloped the entire area using a gravity field, making it difficult for them to move. Viscount Northern then came to them. He said that he was a little worried after hearing that they defeated Minos, but thanks to Lucas, everything could be resolved easily. Because they trusted him so easily, Lucas couldn't believe what he heard. Viscount Northern then ordered his subordinates to kill all the Guardian Knights. Cordelia wouldn't let him do that. She said that she could blow away the gravity field as long as she mobilized all of Witch's power, even though her condition would be in danger, but she believed that Jude could take care of the rest. Cordelia's choice was indeed the only way for them to get out of this situation. Even so, this was too reckless an action. Jude was sure that there would be consequences later. Suddenly the ground shook, and someone fell from the sky. At that moment Jude thought that the sun came down to earth, although he knew that it was impossible, because he saw this person who suddenly appeared so bright. His sudden appearance destroyed the gravity field. He was the red-hair warrior, the person Lucas respected the most, Landius. Landius then attacked the Demon's Hand members around him. Landius' attack could easily defeat many members of the Demon's Hand. The impact of his attack even caused Cordelia to be thrown away. Jude realized that this was not martial arts. Landius only hit the ground a few times and incorporated inner ki into his shout. Even so, he was able to defeat the Viscount Northern subordinates who had cornered the Guardian Knights. The man who had this tragic ending, as well as one of the original protagonists in Legend of Heroes 1, Red Flame Landius. Landius considered Viscount Northern and his subordinates to be weaklings because he didn't even need to use his sword. He then asked how they were doing, but he then looked at Jude and Cordelia. Cordelia was very scared when approached by him, but Landius suddenly grabbed Jude's shoulder while saying that he would make Jude his student. They were confused when they heard that. Landius then said that he would teach him 9 heavens 9 gates, then asked Jude to become his student, because Landius knew that Jude had the Heavenly Martial Constitution. Heavenly Martial Constitution. It is one of the traits of Jude Bayer, who has been suppressed by the 9-blocked pathway. With this trait, in Legend of Heroes 2, Jude has many abilities, including hand-to-hand combat, as well as experts with all kinds of weapons. Players who play Jude are given the choice to specialize in swords like Lucas or Maximilian, or change fighting styles, someone who can do anything. Thanks to this freedom, Jude is able to learn almost all skills that use the body. But Jude had never learned 9 heavens 9 gates. When he was a player, it was not a martial art that appeared in the game release, but Jude had heard about it. He then remembered that it was a martial art that was planned to be released as a new feature in Legend of Heroes 3. Landius then said that Jude could learn the martial art with his constitution. Landius then asked if he was interested in becoming a student. Jude couldn't believe that he was now given the opportunity to learn the martial art, plus he would be taught by the protagonist of the first game. Jude knew that there was no reason for him to refuse this opportunity, so he accepted Landius' offer to become his student. The next day, Jude felt a little regretful for accepting Landius' offer, because he was now in so much pain that he felt like dying, after training with Landius. Because there might be another attack, so they decided to go to Count Riesfelger's territory immediately. But before that, Jude practiced for a few hours with Landius before they left, because Landius had to leave again when they arrived at Count Riesfelger's residence. He said that he had to teach Jude the basics. Since it was the first day, they started by working on the chest and triceps. Jude thought that it wasn't even training, since it was just physical exercise. Jude then asked Cordelia to come closer, since he couldn't even move, and as Cordelia came closer, Jude suddenly pinched her cheek. Cordelia was naturally annoyed by that. Jude then asked her to listen to him. Jude had told her about everything, including the plan to defeat Minos, and even when he could see the witch's soul in her, Cordelia was confused by Jude's sudden attitude. Jude continued. That time Cordelia was angry with him, because Jude had attracted a boss monster without telling her. It happened when they were in the dungeon book. Jude then told Cordelia not to make her own decisions without talking to him first. Therefore, Jude asked Cordelia not to act alone from now on, because Cordelia was the same as hurting herself when she was about to unleash all the power of the witch at that time. Jude was worried about that. Cordelia then apologized for worrying him. There were still 6 days left until they arrived at Count Riesfelger's residence. While in the room, Cordelia's door was suddenly knocked. She thought it was Delia, but it wasn't, because it was Cy Leon, guardian knight of the Riesfelger family. Cy Leon said that Lucas had something to tell Cordelia, and asked if Cordelia wanted her to escort her. Even though Lucas also wanted to tell Jude the same thing, but he didn't want to interfere Jude's training with Landius. And when Cordelia had met Lucas, Lucas asked her if she had heard of the fire sun flower. Cordelia knew it. It was a flower that bloomed once every 20 years, and had strong yang energy. It was an item that was only one rank below the fire sun fish. It was also an item that could increase stats. Lucas then said that there were some details in the Riesfelger family records, in the land of deadly cold, the flower that emits energy found in the frost anvil, and that exactly 20 years had passed since the records were written. Cordelia asked if the flower was the one Lucas was referring to. It could cure Jude's disease. Lucas said yes. Winter was coming soon, so the timing was also completely in sync as written. Cordelia was surprised at the sharpness of Lucas' senses. But the frost anvil was the coldest region in the north. In order to find the fire sun flower, he and Jude had to go there, but he was worried about taking Cordelia in such cold weather, so they had to find a way for them to warm themselves when they got there. Cordelia also said that there were some winter bear-like monsters there, so they also needed a supply of potions. Since Jude was still busy training, Cordelia said that she would tell the guardian knights for now. Cordelia then excused herself. After a while, Cordelia then saw Jude, who was training with Landius. Lucas felt a little envious of Jude, because he had a beautiful fiancée who could work together perfectly as if they were one soul split in two. He was also a student of Landius, a person Lucas respected, because he was like a hero from a fairy tale. Cy Leon then said that Landius martial arts could not be learned except by someone with a special constitution. Not that Lucas was untalented. Landius also admitted that, in sword talent, Lucas could be on par with the sword Phantom Kamal. Lucas was happy to hear that, but even so, he still felt jealous of Jude. Cy Leon then said, then would Lucas just keep watching here? Lucas certainly won't stand idly by, because he finally has a rival, something he's been hoping for a long time. There's no way he's just going to stand by when he sees Jude training hard. Jude was completely exhausted during the training with Landius. His legs didn't even want to move. Cordelia just stared boredly at them. Landius then thought that they would arrive at Count Riesfelger's residence tomorrow, so it had been 6 days since he had taken Jude as his student. Then there was only 1 day left, so he decided to stop the muscle training until here, and start the 9 Heavens 9 Gates training. Jude felt like crying, and wondered what he had done all this time. Landius said that it was just muscle training as he had said from the start. Jude's body was too thin and dry, due to the 9 Blocktian pathway, so Landius told him to hone his body properly. Cordelia then asked, would Jude grow up like him, as he studied the 9 Heavens 9 Gates? Landius laughed at that, and told Cordelia not to worry, because his large body was not because of the 9 Heavens 9 Gates, but because of the giant blood flowing inside his body. A technique that uses blood and soul, to regain the power that lay dormant within his soul and body. Landius had grown like this because of the ancestral recall technique. The technique appeared several times in Legend of Heroes 2, but Jude had no idea that giant blood flowed inside Landius' body. Landius would then start teaching Jude 9 Heavens 9 Gates. 9 Heavens 9 Gates was a martial art based on 9 gates. It was a martial art that would strengthen the user's body and soul following the gates opened. Simply by opening the first gate, Jude only needs to memorize the technique, because the one who can open the gates of his body is himself. All Landius can do is teach him the technique, to lead him to the front of the gate. Landius then told Jude to follow the same horse like him. Landius had now opened up to the 7th gate. When he reached this height, he realized that it took a special talent to perfect this martial art, a talent that Landius did not have. But with Jude's heavenly martial constitution, Landius said that Jude could master this technique to perfection and become immortal. Jude was shocked to hear that. Landius then told him to close his eyes and remember this. This was not a martial art that focused on defense or offense. This was not even an inner key breathing technique. By creating 9 gates within the user's body and soul, it would strengthen the user's soul and body following the open gates, a technique to strengthen the soul, a technique that combined martial arts and cultivation. And while Jude was learning 9 Heavens 9 Gates, his 36 World Steps skill suddenly evolved into a Ranka skill, 24 Tempest Steps. Count Riesfelger's territory was a cold place. It was a harsh environment, so Delia would have difficulty protecting Cordelia when she had to endure the wounds she received from the demon's worshipper, because the wounds could not be healed with healing magic. So Sai Leon asked Delia to return to Bale Rune before her condition worsened. The scene was then shown when Jude had just regained consciousness. He saw Cordelia, who asked about his condition. There was also Landius. It had been 1 day since Jude had successfully memorized the technique. He fainted that same night. They were now in the area outside Count Riesfelger's territory, the trade city of Vadrifner. Jude didn't wake up, but Landius told them not to worry, so they loaded him onto the cart and brought him here. Jude then saw Cordelia, who looked exhausted. Landius said that he had managed to open the first gate in 1 day. Although Landius had expected that the process would be easier for him, but he didn't expect that Jude could do it this quickly, because Landius himself took more than a month to open the first gate. Landius suspected that practitioners also had a heavenly martial constitution. Jude was confused about who the practitioner was, because Landius had mentioned it yesterday. Jude then told Landius that the martial arts he obtained from the dungeon book reacted to 9 Heavens 9 Gates. Landius was surprised to hear that. Jude said after he memorized the 9 Heavens 9 Gates, the technique evolved. Jude might have just had an epiphany. Jude thought since the 2 techniques were mystical martial arts with unclear origins, it was possible that the 2 techniques were related. Landius then asked Jude to tell him about it. Landius guessed that the 36 World Steps were most likely the practitioner's martial art. Jude then asked about who the practitioner was. Landius realized that Jude also had the right to know this. Landius then asked them, do they both know how many Lords of Hells there are currently? Jude answered that there are 5. Landius again asked the reason why there are 5. They were both also confused. Landius then continued, originally, there were 7 Lords of Hell, and 2 of them came to the human world. In order to prevent the meeting between the Pleiades and Oblivion, all the races on this continent united to repel them. After enormous sacrifices, they finally managed to kill the 2 Lords of Hell, and now their number remains 5, or at least that's the story. Landius always thought about that story many times. Among all the races, who and how did they able to defeat the Lords of Hell that hold transcendental power? Landius had long searched for the answer to that question, because it would help all his future battles. And finally, after years of searching, Landius found a record from the ancient relic that came from the Holy Cross Guardians. It was an ancient historical record of the Pleiades, a historical record that was never mentioned anywhere else. The record contained the heroes who managed to defeat the Lords of Hell.N. The scene then shows Lucas looking surprised when Sai Leon tells him that Landius said he was going to Thunder Doom to meet Count Riesfelger. Sai Leon advises Lucas to take him away. Sai Leon will also tell Jude and Cordelia about this change of plans. Lucas understands. This panel is so confusing, I don't know how to describe it clearly. Cordelia was currently still looking sleepy. Landius suddenly appeared behind her to her surprise. They had been talking about the information about the 36 World Steps from Jude. Landius thought that Cordelia had stayed up all night because she was worried about Jude, so he told Cordelia to rest. Landius told Jude, although he didn't have the constitution to complete it, but he never gave up on practicing the 9 Heavens 9 Gates. Even to open the 8th gate, Landius had to perform ancestral recall, but this wasn't enough to learn the 9 Heavens 9 Gates completely. Over the course of 1,000 years, less than 10 people were born with a heavenly martial constitution, so meeting Jude like this and witnessing his potential firsthand made Landius happy. Although he could only give him a few tips, as only Jude himself could open the gates inside his body. But that didn't mean he stopped being his master. There were still many other things he could teach Jude besides 9 heavens 9 gates. Jude could only fall silent hearing that. The protagonists of Legend of Heroes 1, they are all famous for getting bad endings, except for one person. Among them, details about Landius' death are still a mystery. He also never appeared in Legend of Heroes 2. Several Demon's Hand executives have talked about Landius' death, so many players believe that Landius was killed by them. The person suspected of killing Landius is the executive of the Demon's Hand, Duke. They use dangerous poisons that can kill humans with just a scratch, but Jude felt that the current Landius seemed to be able to defeat Duke. He also believed that he could win easily. Jude then told Landius about their meeting with the witch in the Trafalgar Forest. Jude said that at first he and Cordelia were confused about what she meant, but now he felt that the prophecy was related to Landius. Cordelia was surprised to hear Jude's words and wondered if he wanted to tell Landius about it. Cordelia then replied that she had also heard about it. She felt that they had to stop Landius' death to get the perfect ending. Landius then asked about the prophecy. Jude said that the witch's soul said this: "A grave danger will befall the warrior of the sun, so tell him that he should worry of the red scorpion's poison." That's about what the prophecy said. Landius understood. He said he would prepare the antidote later.